Hi everyone, welcome to Ignite. We'll go ahead and get started since it's 6:30. My name is Lauren, if you haven't been here before, and if you haven't met me, I'm the Ignite intern for this year. And tonight is going to be a really exciting talk, so I'm really excited for it. We have 3 different speakers tonight. It's going to go a little bit longer than it has been the past couple of months, but all of our speakers have a lot to say and a lot to offer, and I think it's going to be really cool. But to get us started today, we're going to do something a little bit different than we've done in the past couple of weeks. So we're going to get started by having a student come on and just give like a fun update, just to kind of chat for a little bit and hear from a student and kind of see what's going on in your guys' lives and talk about that before we get started with our speakers for the night. And so today we're having Kyle on. There he is.
Hello.
Hi, Kyle.
Hi.
So do you want to just give like a quick introduction of yourself first?
Yeah, so my name is Kyle Allen. I am the teen confirmation at St. Mary this year, and I am a junior.
Awesome. So yeah, do you want to just give like a little update about like what's been going on in your life and maybe like some fun news or that sort of thing?
Yeah, so I'm super excited that Thanksgiving is the week. We got a whole week of break. It's definitely needed. I know it's a little late, but it's better than nothing. So yeah, I'm super excited to go home and spend time with my family and dog. But yeah, so like now, I'm doing No Shave November with my house. I can't wait for that to be over. But yeah, so we had some unfortunate news though earlier. But it actually, got better. Actually, I just heard a little bit before jumping on this call that one of my roommates came in contact with someone with COVID, but he like caught it really quickly. And it didn't seem like he wasn't like super close. So at first we all thought he was, but he didn't tell us his story. So we got more good news today, and he's been doing really good, taking care of himself. So that's been
That's
just
great.
amazing news. And then we've been having faith sharing nights, which is definitely just boosted boosted my prayer life. I know it's helped me just get closer with the guys in my house. And we focus a lot on praying and just how important prayer is, and just how how impactful it is, and it's definitely changed this semester, and how everything's going with the world and everything.
That's really cool. So can you talk about that a little bit more? Like who runs it, or like how do you guys like do it? What is it like, those faith sharing nights?
Okay, so every week we have someone else lead it, and they come with their own ideas, own thoughts, own activities. First we just share how our week's been going, faith life, just school, normal, whatever. And then we get into whatever there is that week. And it's always different. It's always something you don't expect. It's been just it's crazy how much I still have to learn. Because I'm one of the youngest ones in my house, so it's like they all have an extra year of faith on me. So just learning from them is definitely helped me grow in so many ways, and I'm very thankful for that.
Awesome. That's really cool. Well, thank you for coming on and sharing and giving us a little fun update to get us started. And with that, with talking about prayer and that sort of thing, we'll get started with our opening examen. So we'll talk to you later, Kyle.
Okay, bye. Thank you.
All right, so we'll go ahead and do our opening examen. So you can go ahead and relax and get comfortable. You can close your eyes if you want. Take a minute to center yourself, especially during this busy time. You can steady yourself with taking just a few deep breaths. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Ask God for the grace to pray. Ask Him to help you review your day through His eyes and see how He is working in your life. What is something you are grateful for today? I know we've all been on edge lately, with classes wrapping up and the current rise in cases. But think about how you've seen God lately and the gifts He has given you. Thank God for what you're most grateful for. Think through your day. How did you feel when you woke up this morning? Who did you talk to today? How did you react to the situations you were in? After reflecting on your day, think about the moments where you were less than your best self. What did you do? What could you have done better? Ask God for forgiveness and ask Him for ways to improve. Think of something you can resolve to do tomorrow. How can you bring yourself and others closer to God? Ask God to help you do this. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Okay, awesome. So before we have our speakers come on, we're just going to introduce the topic a little bit. So as most of you probably know, we've been doing a social media campaign for the past few days. And our social media campaign has been for Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week. And Cecilia Rivet, our Faith Doing Justice intern, has been putting that on. And she's been doing an amazing job with that over on our Facebook and our Instagram. And we've been kind of looking at hunger and homelessness through the eyes of the saints this week, which has been really cool. And I've really enjoyed watching it each day. So we've had a few people help out with that, which we just want to kind of recognize. So Cecilia, obviously, for putting it all together and helping with that. And then Emily, Felicia, Father Mark, Lisa, Yusuf, and Rainey have all helped make videos for that and make the whole thing work. And it's been so cool to see everyone and to just kind of have that reminder each morning on the Instagram and on the Facebook. And then obviously just a couple of things about this topic. So this is something that people who have been experiencing homelessness have struggled, especially lately with the pandemic and with social distancing. Obviously, it's difficult, especially for people who are staying in shelters and that sort of thing. They've been really struggling. Some sort of like statistics for you. So right now, there's 273 people that experience homelessness every day in Washtenaw County. And 84% of those people of those unsheltered people have physical health problems, and 78% have mental health problems. So this is really kind of something that's close to home for us here in Washtenaw County and in Ann Arbor. Like we have Mercy House and the Delana Center that kind of work with that population. And I know that I've read a couple articles with the Delana Center, and I know that they're really struggling, especially right now with social distancing and with like the current rise in cases. So this is obviously a topic that is really important for us to talk about and sort of shed some light on, and for us to sort of open our eyes to this and how we can be better companions to those who are experiencing homelessness. And this past week, we've also been doing the men's overnight rotating shelter. That's something that St. Mary helps with every year. So this year is at another parish, but we had a whole bunch of volunteers go and help with that. So we had Madeline, Linnea, Cecilia, Patrick, Joey, Michael, Travis, Kyle, Ryan, Scott, Father Jim, and Arba, just to name a few of students and parishioners who have been going to that and helping out with that this past week. That's been a really awesome experience too. And so for our talk tonight, we're going to have 3 different speakers, like I mentioned, and we're going to kind of do it as this sort of like theme that we've been having at St. Mary for campus ministry this year, the theme of receive, reflect, and respond. So our first speaker is going to be Tom Drexler, and he's going to talk about that sort of receive portion. He's going to share about his ministry at Ignatian Spirituality Project. And then Michael's going to come on to do that sort of respond piece and talk about his personal testimony. And then Rainey is going to come on and do the reflecting piece. Or sorry, wait. Michael is doing the reflecting. Rainey is doing the responding piece about how we can help in our community right here. So I'm going to first play a video for you all, kind of explaining ISP, which is where Tom and Michael both have come from. So we're going to just play that video as a sort of like introduction.
I am loved.
I am loved.
I am loved.
And I am worthy.
I am worthy.
And I am
am worthy.
I belong.
I belong.
I belong.
Joy.
Community.
Hope.
Healing.
Walking together.
Empowerment.
Freedom. Encounter.
Acceptance.
The Ignatian Spirituality Project
Invites people recovering from homelessness and addiction
To encounter God's love.
Healing.
And hope.
through spiritual companionship.
That transforms lives.
Lighting the path.
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 Ignatian Spirituality Project.
Join us.
Okay, so first we're going to have Tom come on. And as I said, he's the executive director for Ignatian Spirituality Project. And he's going to be here on in just a second. And he's going to talk with us and share about their ministry and what they do there and kind of give us like a big overall picture of the ministry that they do there, the retreats that they have. And it's a really cool experience. And I've talked to him a little bit about it. And it's really amazing the work that they do there. Hello?
Hi, Lauren.
Hi, Tom.
Are we all set to go?
Yeah, if you want to just turn on your camera at the top.
Oh,
Yeah, you got
sorry
it.
about that.
No worries. There we go. Okay.
How's that?
That's perfect. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you. It was a good day. I was with the staff today at a couple of trainings, so it was a good day. Thank you.
Awesome. So do you want to just kind of like give a little introduction of yourself? I kind of talked a little bit, but you can kind of explain who you are and what you do.
Sure. As you know, my name is Tom Drexler. I'm the director of the Ignatian Spirituality Project. I've been with the organization for over 12 years now. I come to it with a great love for Ignatian spirituality and for the 12-step recovery program. And our ministry really is rooted in both of those things, Ignatian spirituality and the 12 steps. And I just thought, I used to give retreats to many, many people, high school students, college students, but I thought what a privilege it would be and how unique it would be to be able to give retreats to women and men experiencing homelessness and in recovery from addiction. So I came to ISP, and right now ISP is 22 years old. It got started when the Midwest Jesuit Provincial asked Father Bill Creed, who was at Loyola University in Chicago. The Provincial asked Father Bill to figure out a way how to bring the Ignatian spiritual exercises to the material poor. Well, Father Bill got together with a friend of his who worked at the Chicago Coalition for the Homeless, and together they started a ministry that, as you know from the video, invites people recovering from homelessness and addiction to encounter God's love, healing, and hope through spiritual companionship that transforms lives. That's been our mission from the start. and it will continue for a long, long time. When we envision a world of belonging, where everyone has a seat at the table, where we transcend the margins, believing that we're forming the beloved community. So we do that in a variety of ways, 3 specific ways. Retreats, overnight retreats, and I'm sure most all of you have been on a retreat. Hopefully you have through the parish, and I'm hoping it was an Ignatian retreat. Our retreats are similar to the Kairos retreat that you might have experienced in high school. So it's a simple retreat. It's facilitated. It's conversation with one-on-one, small groups, large groups. It's not a preached retreat. So we have retreats, and then oftentimes 30 days later, we'll have a follow-up day of reflection. And then if we're not doing those in some cities, we'll be doing ongoing spiritual companionship. So spiritual reflection sessions, which not unlike tonight, we did the examine, which was, I thought, a great way to start a meeting. And the retreat, let me just say this little piece about the retreat. It's really built around sharing your story. So you just come as you are, share your story, and go to that vulnerable point in your life, your brokenness, and share that. And it's amazing when 15 people sit in a circle do that, how healing can begin. And with that healing comes hope. And with that hope comes imagining a different way of living. So really a transformative experience. We're in 29 cities, 27 of them in the United States, and then we're also in Toronto, Canada, and Dublin, Ireland. We're in Detroit, and we started in Detroit in 2014. January of 2014 was first men's retreat, and then 6 months later, June of 2014 was the first women's retreat. So that's a little bit about ISP.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you. So I guess a question to kind of like think about here too is, what would you say are different ways that a person can be homeless? Like, what are the different sort of like forms that can take, I guess? Sure.
Well, there's many to begin with. And, you know, I don't know if there's a common thread throughout them all. Maybe the most common experience would be that the men and women experiencing homelessness have lost their social network. That they can't double up anymore in someone's home. That they no longer have relatives to bring them in. That for some reason they've been kicked out of their house, or they burned bridges, or their bridges were burned for them. So they've lost their social network. But there's many ways. Obviously, one is addiction. And when addiction gets out of hand, there's a downward spiral. And that downward spiral includes losing your family, losing your job, losing your home. And once your addiction is active and you're on the streets, it's really tough to beat. You mentioned it, Lauren, in some of those figures, that mental illness also plays a role. And there also, who knows how someone who's mentally ill gets on the street? Did they simply leave their home, run away, or were they forced out? For whatever reason, they find themselves on the street, and they can't access the services because of their illness to get off. Formerly incarcerated men and women oftentimes are released, and they have nowhere to go. Again, their bridges were burned for whatever reason. They're doing, someone else is doing, but they end up on the streets. A growing population, an alarming growing population, is youth, especially the LGBTQ youth. And that could be from being kicked out or from running away. But too often they find themselves on the streets. Also, and this is particularly a problem during COVID-19, is lots of lots of families live paycheck to paycheck. And when that paycheck stops, rent can't be paid, or you start making decisions over feeding your family or paying the rent. And if you don't pay the rent, eviction can follow. And so people have lost their homes through eviction, and families have found themselves on the streets. It's amazing. And I would say one last thing, and this is more of a structural problem, but there is a true lack of affordable housing. You know, and when cities or counties institute affordable housing programs or policies, they take forever to get started. Even something like a voucher program can be problematic because people with housing vouchers oftentimes can't find landlords who will take those vouchers, even though that's against the law.
Yeah.
So lots of different reasons.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point that you make, because I think a lot of times people who are more fortunate and who have like all of these privileges kind of tend to see it as, okay, well, why don't they just get a job? Why don't they go like stay with a relative or stay with somebody else? Like, why don't they just like work harder? And it's like, that's not the case. It's like they're trying a circle of poverty that it's hard to break out of, especially with, like you were saying, the current climate with everything, with housing and everything. So I guess one other question I have for you is, how specifically are we called as Catholics to be companions with people who are struggling with homelessness?
Yeah, great question, Lauren. And I would think that that begets a question. And the question for me would be, are women and men who are experiencing homelessness, are they or are they not our brothers and sisters? And if they are, then we need to treat them as our brothers and sisters. Well, then you might ask, well, fine, what does that mean? How do we treat women and men experiencing homelessness as our brothers and sisters? You know, and I think that's an individual choice here. And it might mean working in a soup kitchen. It might mean visiting a shelter for fellowship. It might mean working at a clothing bank. It might mean giving money when you approach someone on the street. It might be giving them food. But what I think is required of us as Catholics, as Christians, as human beings, is when we encounter someone on the street who's homeless, that we look them in the eye and say hello. We acknowledge their personhood. And we had a former retreatant who went on the retreats, eventually got a job, did some work for us, eventually joined our board of directors. And he said, one of the worst things about being homeless is that you're invisible. People walk right by as if you're not even there. People make a wide turn around you, or worse, people cross the street to avoid you. So they feel invisible. What I think we need to combat that by acknowledging them. You know, if we turn to Catholic social teaching even for an answer, at the core of Catholic social teaching is the person's human dignity, that we preserve the dignity of everyone. Well, how do we do that? Look them in the eye, say hello, ask them their name, ask them how they're doing. That goes a long way.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that kind of reminds me of Father Mark's homily today at our Mass right before this. He kind of brought up Pope Francis's encyclical. And there's actually a quote that I have here from it that says, we need to develop the awareness that nowadays we're either all saved together or no one is saved. Poverty, decadence, and suffering in one part of the earth are a silent breeding ground for problems that will end up affecting the entire planet. So I think that that just kind of ties into that really well. And it's that whole idea that if one part is suffering, we're all suffering, and just really taking care of each other. Because I think you're totally right that I know that there's a number of homeless men and women who are around Ann Arbor, downtown Ann Arbor specifically, and just walking around with friends and things like that. I don't remember the last time I saw anybody stop and say hello or even give any sort of acknowledgement. So I think that that's a really good point. Okay, well, thank you for coming on and thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
It's an honor to have you. I think we're going to have Michael come on now. But thank you, Tom, and we'll see you later.
Great, thanks.
Bye. Okay, let's get Michael in here. Okay, he should be here in just a second. So Michael has been on one of those retreats in the past that Tom was talking about. And he'll come on and share sort of his story about that, sort of his testimony, his personal experience with that retreat, and what he's doing now at ISP himself. So we'll give him just a second to get on here. And also in the meantime, if anybody, we kind of had the idea that if anybody has any like prayer requests or things like that in the chat, feel free to like send those messages in there, and we can include those maybe at the beginning of our prayer next time, or we can just kind of have that space for everybody to talk to each other and help each other out in that way. Hi, Michael, are you there? There we go. Hi, can you hear me, Michael?
There you go. Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, there we go. Okay, perfect. Hi. So, you want to just give a quick introduction of yourself first to get started?
How you doing? My name is Michael Cuevas, and I'm a team member for ISP Boston.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, if you just want to sort of share your story and just sort of give us a little bit of an insight into your life and your experience with the retreat at ISP and things like that.
Definitely. It's funny because what Tom was saying really it really hit home about being invisible. Just a little bit about myself. I grew up in a small city in Massachusetts called Lawrence. And I grew up in a Catholic family. I was baptized Catholic. I remember when I was young, we used to go to church every Sunday. My grandmother used to make us go. And I remember my mother and dad, they were very, very family oriented, and they wanted us to know about God, and they wanted us to go to church and all those good things that they have for us. But fast forward to when I was about 13 years old, my mother was diagnosed with cancer, lung cancer, and it kind of hit me by surprise. I didn't know how to react. I didn't know the feelings that I was feeling inside. I was just like very, very depressed. And about 8 months later, a month after I turned 14 years old, she died in Miami-Dade hospital out there in Miami. So I was very confused and I was very lost. I didn't understand like how this would happen. Like, she was such a good woman. Right. She was a Christian. She lived her faith. I didn't understand like how she would get taken from this world. And my whole life I've been taught that God is supposed to protect us and he loves us and the good people stick around, you know what I'm saying? So yeah. I was very confused. So it began to become like a resentment. Like, I started to resent God. Like, it wasn't that I didn't believe in God. It was that I felt that God was a punishing God, that he was just out here keeping tabs on everybody, making like Santa, like they say Santa does. Check the list, check it twice. Yeah. I felt like God was doing that all day long, just trying to see if we would mess up. You know what I'm saying? So I thought that I was being punished, and I felt that he punished my mother also for some odd reason that I knew nothing about. So I was confused for most of my life. 14 years old, that's when it started. Like, I joined the gang. I started getting into all the street stuff. Got into jails and institutions, in and out of jails when I was young. As soon as I turned 18, went to the big house. The cycle just kept going. And it was all because of this anger that I had towards God. And I just didn't understand how he could do that to such a good person. You know what I'm saying? But I understand now. Well, I'm starting to understand now, but that'll be a little bit further. But yeah, so my whole life of anger and resentment towards him, I tried to do whatever I could to not follow him. Like, I remember, I think I said this a couple of weeks ago. Like, I was, if anything, like I was riding for the other guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was with him. I was his biggest soldier because I was doing everything and anything I could that I believed was a big enough sin to kind of like throw it in God's face. And because of that, I've had a hard life. A lot of things have happened. I got shot when my son was born. And the most recent thing that happened to me was in 2017, on my way back from my now bringing home my now fiance to her house. I was driving back and I was under the influence because ever since my mother died when I was 14, I just went crazy. I started dabbing into drugs, alcohol, you name it, anything just to mask the pain, anything that could kind of make me forget about life.
Yeah.
And so 2017, I was dropping my now fiance home, and on my way back, I was, mind you, I was still up from the night before, like I haven't slept. So I'm driving back, and I ended up falling asleep on the wheel, and I woke up 2 days later in Beth Israel Hospital in Boston because they told me that my car flipped 8 times. I was ejected 70 feet away. I was ejected 70 feet from the car. I broke my back. I broke my spine in 5 places. When I woke up, the doctor told me there was a 20% chance of me ever walking again. And by the grace of God, I'm running now. I could jump, jog, swim, can't do a backflip. I'm moving, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm moving, thank God. And that's through the grace of God. And when I woke up that morning and they told me that, it's like I just got hit. Like, I felt like this heavy thing like on my chest. My friend was praying for me and I didn't know what it was, but it must have been the Holy Spirit. And it was just giving me a chance to be able to see my son again and to be able to go out there and try to accomplish the things that I've been trying to accomplish. So he kind of, it was like a spiritual awakening. Like, I couldn't even believe that I was alive, and I knew who was responsible for it. It was God, no other person. I felt like he put like a big mattress in the middle of the highway, and I just landed on it and bounced back up. Because 2 months after I left that hospital, that they were telling me I had a 20% chance of walking, I went to a rehab, and I was walking in less than a month and a half. You know what I mean? And that's all through the grace of the God. That's all through the grace of God, and that's all through the strength that He's given me throughout my whole life. Because everything that I've gone through, He's gotten me through it. But I always tried to take all the credit for it. You know what I'm saying? Which, like, in reality, if I wanted to take credit for it, then I'm a very, like, I'm horrible at this stuff. Seriously. But so that day I finally said, you know what? God saved my life for the last time. I'm going to try my best to live faithfully to Him. You know what I'm saying? But I ended up getting out. I was still doing the same stuff. I ended up moving out here to Revere with my fiance, and I met this gentleman that lives in the back of my house. And he was involved with ISP, and he was telling me to go to meetings all the time, but I kind of like just shrugged it off. But then my brother Anthony, which is my oldest brother, was struggling with addiction in Manchester, New Hampshire, and people were telling me crazy stories that he was slumped over on the sidewalk, all type of crazy stuff. So he called me one day and he told me that he wanted to get off of he was addicted to heroin, you know, and he told me that he wanted to get off it and he needed somewhere to detox at. He wanted to get away from everything. So I moved away from Lawrence. I'm all the way in Revere. I tell him to come down here, and he came detoxing for like a month, like a week or two, and he started asking me about any meetings. So I went to the back and I asked Joe if he could bring my brother Anthony to an ISP meeting. And these are tune-ups. These are ongoing accompaniments that we do in Boston, like during the week, a couple of times during the week. But so my brother asked me to go with him for support, and I met with him, and I met the the director from Boston, like the guy that runs the Boston team, Jay Burke. And from the moment that I walked in there, it was like people that I would never even say hi to when I was walking down the street, like just embracing me with open arms and showing me this unconditional love without even knowing me, like this acceptance that after I left that meeting, like I wanted more because we did a little they read a little passage and they asked a couple of questions about the passage, and just the vulnerability and the honesty of everyone that was sitting around the table, how they poured their heart out, kind of attracted me to it. So when I left, I kept wanting more, and I kept asking my buddy in the back, when's the next tune-up? When's the next tune-up? So he finally invited me to a retreat, and I went to this retreat not knowing what to expect. I was nervous because I was going to a whole nother city. I'd never even been on a retreat in my life. You know what I'm saying? So we get to the house, we all meet up, and then I get into a car with 4 men that I've never met in my life. This is the first time I've ever met these men. We get to the house, everybody gets settled, and we finally get into the circle. And we started off with everybody just introducing themselves, and then the pureness of these men, the vulnerability, the realness, the honesty, just everything throughout that weekend was incredible. Like I couldn't even believe it. I couldn't believe that this many men were going through the same situations that I was going through. I thought that I was the only person going through these things. But going there, it introduced me to not being so self-absorbed and thinking that everything is wrong with me, but understanding that there are other people that are going through the same situations as you, and they still have that faith. They still believe that God is going to take care of the situation, and they will overcome it no matter how bad the situation is. So that kind of like put me in awe. Like I couldn't believe it. Like, and us as men, like we're not supposed to get vulnerable. We're not supposed to cry. We're supposed to be macho men. But I'm sitting with men of all different colors, races, different walks of life, all just connecting and just being real with each other. You know what I'm saying? And for me, that's the best thing you could do is be real to me. You know what I'm saying? And like Tom was saying earlier, like my whole life, I felt invisible. I felt like nobody understood my pain, and nobody even cared to ask what I was going through. So it's whatever, you know what I'm saying? But then I go into this tune-up to this retreat with like 19 other men, and they're all pouring their heart out and still living their faith, telling me how good God has been in their life, you know? So ISP opened up a world of opportunities for me. It opened up the acceptance that God loves me for who I am. No matter all the things that I did in my life, he accepts me for who I am. And it opened the door to me to looking at God as a loving father, as like a parent, a person that only wants to see me excel in life. And even if I mess up, he's still gonna take me back with open arms, because that's what a father does. And most of my life I couldn't grasp that, and I couldn't understand what that truly meant until I was introduced to ISP and they introduced me to a loving father. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think that what you were saying, it really sounds that ISP and just talking to those men was really such a source of hope and inspiration. And I love how you're like relating everything back to God and your relationship with him. And I think that that's so cool that, like you said, you're able to still through the hardships see where God is in your life and how he's still supporting you. And speaking of hope, you are an ambassador of hope for ISP, right? So do you want to like just share what that means and what you do for that in Boston?
The Ambassadors of Hope is a pilot program from ISP. They picked 7 people from all the ISP, throughout the whole ISP network, from like I think it was like 7 different cities in the United States, and we go and we do retreats. They got us doing kind of like a little kind of like studying a little bit. We're doing a pilgrimage, and they give us packets, and It's just, you know, basically looking at the inside of ourselves, you know what I'm saying? To be able to come back to Boston and represent ISP in a better form and more with more knowledge of who God is in my life and what I have to do with it. You know what I'm saying?
Cool. All right. Well, thank you, Michael, for coming on and sharing with us. It was so awesome to have you. It was such an honor.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Okay. Well, we're going to talk to Rainey next, but thank you for coming on, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.
All right. You're welcome. Bye-bye.
So, Rainey, if you want to go ahead and request to speak, we'll get you in here. So Rainey is a resident parishioner here at St. Mary. She's been super involved in a whole bunch of different things. So she's going to come on and talk about kind of her experience with a bunch of different things in relation to homelessness and how she's found that she can be a companion to those who are struggling with homelessness. And kind of like we were talking about with Tom earlier about how we're called to really actually open our eyes and see these people and not help them stay invisible and just give them that recognition. Hi, Rainey.
Hi, Lauren. I've got like the big bright light.
Okay. How are you?
Good, thanks. I'm in Montana at the moment, so thanks for the invite to Ig.nite. It's my first one, so I'm geeked.
That's great. Do you want to just give an introduction of yourself if there's anybody who doesn't know you already?
Sure. My name is Rainey Lamey. I'm one of the resident parishioners at St. Mary's. I love that we're a multi-generational, international, everybody kind of parish. One of the reasons I'm invited is I think I'm a member of the Detroit chapter of the Ignatian Spirituality Project, and we have several members. So far, it's just been a women's participation.
Oh, okay.
But one of the reasons I became involved is engaging with the homeless community in Ann Arbor. And that started with things like Camp Take Notice, taking the dinners when people were living out in this little wedge between Wagner Road, M14, and I-94. And then that evolved into trying to support Mercy House, their meals, their provisioning, and that, you know, and it just kind of spins in between the rotating overnight shelter and the daytime warming center. Eventually, I quit serving and I just started seeing my friends. And sometimes my friends needed my help. Sometimes, you know, it really wasn't that at all. I kind of needed their help. And
yeah.
We just wanted to sit and chat. And it was somebody, us for being different people to talk with and listen to than our usual circles. And I think that's been one of the big insights for me with this path is echoing what both Tom and Michael are saying, is seeing each of us as a child of God and, you know, picking out all the circumstances and my biases that have me inevitably judging, right? And that's just a lifelong process. But no, Ignatian Spirituality Project, those retreats are all that Michael has.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point about what you're saying about recognizing our own sort of judgments that we make internally. And I think that that's definitely easier said than done. I think it's really hard. I think us as Catholics, sometimes we can kind of think like, oh, we're loving, we like go around and like to get to know everyone and we're welcoming. But I think that it's important to take a good hard look at ourselves and think, okay, what goes through my mind when I see a person on the street with a sign asking for money? Like, how do I recognize them in my mind? Am I ignoring them? And am I making judgments about them? Or am I treating them as a brother and sister in Christ? So yeah, do you want to maybe talk about like how those experiences have shaped your faith and like what you've learned from your experiences with all those different volunteering type of things.
Right. And I'd like to build on what you said about when we're approaching, and in addition to kind of unpacking our head, I think it's important, and I see how you all are learning these spiritual skills, but what's happening in my heart? And what I find is these experiences have also unveiled the hardnesses of my heart that favor my head. So I think we've talked about this a little bit, where the United States culture has this great myth of meritocracy. If I do these things, I will have money, I will have housing, I just should have worked harder. There's all these kind of myths, and we see this a little bit with the Black Lives Matter movement too, where the social contract, there are good things about U.S. culture. It's better when we understand it doesn't, this idea of the social contract isn't working for everybody. And it's working mostly for people who have come from privileged, educated, generally white, not always, but just these things. And my volunteering experiences, particularly now, but even some, when I was a little baby Wolverine, they helped me understand, there's lots of people all over this country on the streets doing the right thing in the right way, and it fails. In the sense that there's not this material success, there's not what we hope as other human beings would be the result. So by engaging out of my comfort zone, and learning to unpack what my head is doing, but more tuning into my heart. Where is my heart open, broken? One of the things we get with being a Wolverine is, there's lots of good stuff. But I think we get used to thinking we can fix everything. And maybe what I value about our Catholic spirituality is we worship this guy who was railroaded, persecuted by both his own people and by a ruling regime, and executed in one of the most cruel capital punishments known to humankind. He died in rags on a cross. He lost. And I think Father Mark touched on this really well in his homily. Yeah. So when we're walking the streets, what I found is a bit what Michael was saying is, when was I crossing the street? Why? What was going on in my heart? And you got to uncouple them, because it happens really quickly. And so that's where these opportunities, where I just started to, I saw so many people, and I ended up listening to enough people that I realized we're just all people, and I got lucky. If Richard, I don't know, some of you know Richard, he hangs out, he works the Starbucks at Liberty and State. See him, unfortunately, more on the sunny side and under the covering now. But he loves talking to students from St. Mary's. And if you have a chance, he enjoys the company. And he's out all day working. And a moment that was, again, just in that engagement, one time just hanging with him, and we were just chatting. And so there's times where we ignore people. There's also people who are just downright cruel. And so one time he was telling me somebody walked by and tossed pennies, into the planter and just said, just said something awful. Yeah. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh, well, thank God you didn't go after them, Richard. and thank God I didn't say that, because of course the first thing he said, yeah, of course I went and got him. Pennies mattered to him. Yeah. And, and that was one more moment where I just had to unpack and say, okay, please, God, forgive me. I need to keep learning. Please forgive me for thinking I was companioning, when in fact it was, and thank you for this opportunity to peel off one more layer of privilege. And look at with a sense of humor and take your lumps and more importantly, take the love. And make wrong decisions sometimes. Not to endanger yourselves, but
yeah.
I spend a lot of time with the Good Samaritan parable. That road was horrid. People were robbed on it constantly. So it wasn't just a matter of this person stopping. It was a matter of this person putting their own life at risk to help somebody. And I'm not encouraging you to put your life at risk in this way. I think we can all, when we feel our hearts clutch, if not in that moment, take this other part of the reflect and come home. And if you can't open up in that moment, unpack where in prayer. Ask Jesus to sit with you in love and say, where was this fear coming from? And next time you're out, I think you'll find Jesus companions you, and then you meet Jesus in the people around you. You see more. You see more people.
Yeah. I think that I really like your point of just sort of like realizing that we all still have more to learn and better ways to be better companions, no matter where we're at. I also had a quote about this that kind of I think relates from the encyclical that we were kind of talking about earlier. It says, "Let us admit that for all the progress we have made, we are still illiterate when it comes to accompanying, caring for, and supporting the most frail and vulnerable members of our developed societies. We have become accustomed to looking the other way, passing by, ignoring situations until they affect us directly." And it's like that's just the sad truth of it. That we don't look at it until it affects us.
And it does help me. I never would have, before I returned to the church 10 years ago, I would never have read the Magnificat. I would never have said I was a loved sinner. And now I keep hoping that I can grow into being a loved sinner. I'm kind of a weenie. I'm a little bit of a spiritual weenie, but I have the desire to want to be a loved sinner.
That's a start.
And I think part of that is, and once I'm there, then we just all start breaking down who is in and who is out.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, well, thank you for coming on, Rainey. Did you have any last things you wanted to mention to the students listening?
Well, I honestly think these ISP retreats are so awesome. I think the students would love these too. It's an Ignatian format, and it is really about you take a diverse group of people, you're in one space for 36 hours. We're always telling our new members that are kind of fretting, like, don't we need to do this or that's? Like, no, God takes care of these retreats. Don't sweat it, because almost every mistake has resulted in a victory for love. In all my experiences with, I think I've had the gift of being on maybe 4 or 5 of these retreats now. And there's these one-on-one and then small and full group sessions of sharing. And over time, the Spirit is weaving us together, and each of us are deciding what we're going to take forward in our journey and what's going to be left by the side of the road. And there's just this opening up to both our wounds and resilience. And I just am stunned by the pictures that we take at the end, where for me, they're gender segregated, though they wouldn't have to be in your case, but the changes in the women's face. These were not people you could bring together as folks for a photo. And by the end, we take this loving, laughing picture. And kind of taking you back to video, it's like you see that people are basically saying, I remember now. I am loved. I am lovable. I am loving. And that's who God is. So
exactly. Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on, Rainey. I'm sure we'll see you around at St. Mary when you get back.
And hang in there. Hang in there. This too shall pass.
Yes. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Okay, so we'll just end with our closing prayer as usual. So this is a prayer that I found from the Catholic Charities. So in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Almighty and ever-living God, your will for humanity is that none should be lost, that all should be saved and find their home in you. Your Son, Jesus, came among us in poverty and simplicity to show us the inherent dignity of each human life and to reveal your special love for the poor. We thank you for entrusting to our care your precious ones known in the face of the homeless. Bless all those who have shared life together with us in the shelters dedicated to serving those in need. As we joyfully celebrate the miracles we have witnessed in your midst, help us to rededicate ourselves to continue to extend your loving hand to all those who come our way. No one is a stranger to you, and no one is ever far from your loving care. Your kindness watch over all those who find themselves without food or shelter, who have been separated from the support of their family, who have lost their way and are seeking a place to call home. Bring them safely to us, that we might welcome them and serve them, so that they might renew their strength, and with your help, find hope for the future. Bless the work of our hands, so that our service to others will continue to build your kingdom of peace and justice in our world. We make this prayer to you, O God, who have created us, saved us, and made us whole. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Okay, so just a couple things before we wrap up or get going. Discussion question, if you're with roommates or friends and want to discuss, what has been your response when you meet someone experiencing homelessness? And what are ways that you can be a better companion to those in our community in Ann Arbor? And then a challenge for the week. I have a couple resources. Let me find them. These are just a couple articles that I found about what's going on with, I'm copying it. Okay. With our community here in Ann Arbor. It talks about sort of the Delanus Center is one of the links, and a couple other ones. And it has me as Brian, but anyway, ignore that. But those are a few links. So the challenge is just to sort of check those out and learn about what's going on in our own community with the homeless population, and just sort of open your eyes to that population and what's going on in the current climate with the pandemic and everything, and different ways that you can serve. We have Mercy House that's open for volunteers and things like that. And you can reach out to Cecilia if you want to do that. And then just a couple of announcements too. So obviously this week we sort of focused on the homelessness aspect of the Hunger and Homelessness Week, but we're also sort of doing the hunger piece in December. So St. Mary is doing a food drive at the beginning of December to sort of give back. So if you want to help with that, you can, I'm sure we'll need volunteers to help with that. So look out for emails in the future about that for December. And that's all we have. So thank you for coming. Have a good week, and we'll see you in December with the next Ignite Talk. Bye.